Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today let's understand solidjs, a game changer in the world of modern UI libraries. In this video we are diving deep into solidjs, exploring its incredible reactivity and performance that is reshaping the way we build our apps. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. The first question that comes into our mind is, why should we use solidjs? What is it giving new to the table? So, SolidJS is a lightweight framework and it focuses mainly on some of the problems that were present in other frameworks. Like SolidJS does not have, or it doesn't need a virtual DOM, but still it can update what needs to be updated, as the whole concept of this SolidJS is based on signals and setup functions. The second main thing is its learning curve is small. It follows the same structure as React. It is heavily inspired from React. Most of the coding standards and the component structure, everything is from React. So it wouldn't take too much time to adapt to SolidJS. So the main components that SolidJS is built on, or the building blocks of SolidJS, are primitives and life cycles. So primitives are the major components or the functions through which you can build a SolidJS application, and there are some lifecycle methods which we can use in the course of building our applications. Without further wastage of time, let me start creating a project. To create a project, I can use white CLI. I'll use white version 4. I can give a project name, say I'll give solidjs-learning, and here I can select the framework, whichever framework I want to create this project with. So here I'm selecting solid and a variant of TypeScript. So now if I go into this and run npm install, yeah, it is all installed now. I'll open the same code in my Visual Studio Code. Yeah, okay, let me expand it a little and open my terminal. npm run dev. So this opens up in 5173 port, and this is how it looks. It has some static content, white and solid, and there is one button which has count is 0, and on click the counter increases, and some other text. Let me show you the code. So coming to the code, it has a white config which has a plugin for solid JS, which is taken from white plugin solid, and other things look similar to how a React application code looks, like a TS config for our TypeScript compiling purpose. Package.json contains some script tags. The dependency is only solid.js, and dev dependencies are TypeScript, white, and white plugin for now. Index.html is the main file that gets loaded onto the screen. It has a div with id as root, and a script tag is included here, which is pointing to src index.tsx. The files, the components follow the same structure as React, with file extension as either JSX or TSX based on what template you are using. It has the same structure where you have the JavaScript code, and the return statement contains the HTML template which has to be displayed as per that component. So here I am showing you the app.component. Before that, index.component looks like this. Root constant is taken with the document.getElement by id of root, and to that root the app component is rendered. So in the app.tsx, this is how it looks. It contains some return statement of some static content here, and one variable definition here. Let me remove all the unwanted content and let me keep only the counter for now. Signal actually creates a signal uh, object or signal variable for this app component. It returns two variables. One is count and set count. Here count is a getter function and this is a setter function. Whenever you need to access this signal value, you can use count of call it as a function. So it can store this create signal can store any kind of values, but if at all, if any bigger object are to be stored, there is another primitive, secondary primitive called create store can be used. This need not be part of the function. It can be outside also and can be referred within. So for example, if I created this outside, it will behave in the same way as it was inside. So here if I do, it will still do the same functionality. Let me do one more thing here. I'll try to print it here. Console.log of count is count. Let me open my console here. Sorry, I will just say count. As it is a function, I'll have to call it with the brackets. Now, if I reload and click on this, the variable value is getting incremented, but I'm not seeing it here, which means that there is no re-rendering of the component happening, as the signals are meant to directly affect or directly impact the DOM element. There is no re-rendering of the component. So this is first main primitive. There are two more primitives. Like for example, if I have to work on this count value, whenever the count value is changing, I want to do some other function, then we can create something called as create effect. Again, this is also similar to what we have in React use effect. um, but here a little change is there, that is there is no second parameter needed. And here if I now print the same thing, count inside create effect is, so now if I see on the screen, initially it is printing the outside one, but as the value changes, the create effect console log is printed. Here, as I told, I do not need any dependencies to be passed here. Whatever is part of this function element, the dependencies are auto calculated. So that is the second main primitives that need to be known. There is one more major primitive called create memo. In case if you want to memorize any variable value, you can use it. For example, in this case, let me create something called squared, which is supposed to be the square of the count number. Then I can use create memo, and then I can do something like this. And only when the count value is changed, the squared value will be calculated, and hence uh, the value is memoized, and it is dependent only on the count. Here also I do not have to pass any second parameter. The reason is it is auto calculated based on what is the content that is part of this create memo. So for now, let me just print that also. Okay, now coming back to my screen, if I now press, the square value is calculated. So these are three major primitives that are needed. The fourth one is called create resource. In order to explain that, let me create one small application here, which will be comprising of router, solidjs router, and I'll also explain the lifecycle methods that I told in the beginning. In that application, let me create a small application here. To do that, I need to install uh, solidjs uh, router. So this application will contain three pages. First page would be of categories. The next would be of products of a particular category, and then edit on that particular product. Okay, so here I'll show you how we can navigate between the pages, how the routes are configured in solidjs, and also how resources can be calculated with other lifecycle methods. Also, to style this application, let me install a Tailwind CSS. To install Tailwind CSS, am just running npm install of Tailwind CSS, and also auto prefixer with an auto prefixer as a dev dependency. So once I have this as dev dependencies, I will have to set it up so that I can do with this npx tailwind css init, by calling the init of Tailwind CSS, and by calling it with hyphen p. Hyphen p is sent to create post css config file. When I open, you can see the plugins are Tailwind CSS and auto prefixer. Similarly, when I open Tailwind config, I have a content, theme, and plugin. In the content, I'll have to provide what files are to be looked upon for Tailwind CSS to compile the CSS one. So in this case, let me give index.html, because there also you can do some styling in case needed. And then I'll give src slash uh, any file under src. So for that, let me do this: js, jsx, ts, tsx. So now this configuration is done in my index.css. I'll remove all the other entries and now create. uh, I'll import the tailwind with the help of this tailwind css base, tailwind css components, and tailwind utilities. So once this is done, my application can now use Tailwind CSS. So let me go to this app. I'll remove this card and then create the router configuration. So for the router, and also let me remove the other things, unnecessary things that I had it in my app component. So let me create the router configurations. For creating a router configuration or to get the router in solidjs, the base application should be wrapped up with router, solidjs router. I'll create the routes here and I'll explain what it is. So this is my route configuration I have created. I have just added some routes here with some components. The components are created here. I'll show how what they are. So you can see there are two main routes here. One, when it is a slash, then opens the home page, then slash categories will open categories. The third one is a nested route, just to show you how it works. So whenever there is a category name selected, then it shows the products. So it is just the slash and it will show you the products page, and then if any product is selected, it should show the product, the individual product. So currently they are all simple components. So here it says welcome to product management, then here it is just products and categories. So I'll just show you on the screen, coming from the first. So this is my first page. Then if I go to categories, so this is my categories, and if I select something and products, this is the products, and here this is the one product. So here you can see these two are nothing but wildcard entries, or wildcard values here, which are having colon name and colon product name. I'll use them in the component here. So as soon as the application opens up, because it is having only slash, so it will open up with the home page. In home page, it will wait for some seconds and move to categories page. Redirection happen from the home page to categories. Categories page will display some category informations which is fetched from an API. And when you click on a particular category, it open that category's products page, which will be a list of again products. And you click on a product, it will take you to its edit screen where you can edit that product. So let me start by writing some code on this home page. So as I told little earlier, solidjs components have two lifecycle methods. I'll use one of the methods now, that is called on mount, which is called in the beginning of the component's life cycle. That means whenever the component gets loaded, this is the first function that gets called. It is similar to, okay, again, if you take React as an example, it is similar to create effect without any dependencies. So here, let me do that. I'll just give a set timeout and then give a 5000 here. And in order to move from home page to different route, I can use navigate. From use navigate, is a solidjs routers, one of the functions using which I can actually navigate to whatever URL that I want. So here I'll just mention. So if I go back to this page, I'll just copy this. So that is all needed here. If I now come back to my screen and open this, so this is my welcome to product page, and after 5 seconds it moves to the categories page. Yeah, so this is working fine and my URL is categories. Let me try to get some data in categories page now. So for this, as I told, I'll go to this dummy JSON .com, and there is this product categories which will give me a list of these things, and I'll use it on my component. Create a fetcher function here, uh, returning this URLs fetch, which is a promise here. So I can get this data inside this category in many ways. One is, as now we saw, on mount I can use and then assign it to a signal variable, or there is another way of getting it, and that is called as create resource. So create resource is the fourth main primitive that is defined or that is needed as per solidjs for your applications to work. So let me show you how we can create it. So for getting this categories data set, so create resource has this syntax where I'll have to I can pass two parameters here. One is the whatever that fetcher function needs any input, if at all, if it needs any input, that can be passed as the first parameter. As in this case I don't need anything, let me just pass the function here. And this categories data set will now be containing the data here, but this is coming out of a asynchronous process. I cannot directly use it here. For that there are some components provided by solidjs. One such component is show, which helps in getting this asynchronous data onto the screen. So show has some properties where it asks for whenever when it has to be shown. So in this case my categories data set has this value called loading, and if at all if this loading is not true, then I need it, or if at all if it is still true, I can have a fallback given, which can be anything like a loader or a loading function, anything you can have. So let me have something like loading, and then inside this I will now loop through this categories data set and print it. So how do I do that? I can actually for looping here we don't have to just loop it through a map function and get it. So for that also there is one component given called for, in which each is a property which takes in this data set, and then you can loop through this data sets items. So I'll say category. So what I have done here is I'm using this component for from solidjs, and each is a property to which I'm sending the data set, and that data sets each entry will be looped here and it gets printed. Let's see how it looks on the screen. Yeah, you can see that the data has come. Let me reload it. Yeah, for a fraction of second you can see that loading had come. Let me show again. So that is actually because of this fallback that I have given, and at that moment this category dataset dot loading is still true. That's the reason that loading comes, and as soon as the data comes it is showing this data. So this is the main element or main building block, which is a primary primitive for solidjs, one of the major primary primitive for this solidjs. Now this categories data set has some other values as well. Like say if I click here, you can see there is an error. In case if you want to handle an error coming out of this resource fetching, you can use this. If at all if it is error, I can show error on top somewhere. Similarly, in his case, the create resource gives a tuple not just of categories data set but also two more properties called mutate and refetch. So what mutate does is assume I got the data and I want to change it, I want to enrich it. I can use mutate and enrich this categories data set. Similarly, refetch is when I call this refetch, the same fetcher will be run again. For now, I'll not use it. I'll use it in the products page. For now, this is categories. Let me style this and I'll come back in a bit. After styling the categories, this is how it looks. I have created a grid with a columns of three. and then I have given some hover effect here. So the concept here is, on click of this, it should take me to the products page of that particular category. So how I have designed is here, I've given some tailwind classes here to get to the style that it is, and on click event handler, I have given a click handler by passing the category that is clicked. So this click handler can also be written in a different way as a tuple click handler, and then pass in the data that is needed. So this works in the same way. So now if I go to my screen and click, so here before that the click handler has a navigate, which is again taken from use navigate, and I am navigating to category slash whatever the category I select and slash products. So if I come back here, say if I click on this laptops, it takes me to the products page, and the URL has laptops and products. So in the products page now, I'll try to read this laptop's name and then try to get the data uh, of laptops. I can get that value that is passed on the URL with the help of use params. Use params is one of the functions given from solidjs, again solidjs router. So let me use it. Use params, and then if I just console it, I should be able to see whatever was selected. So params value, the name that was given for this particular variable is name. So let me just say name here and come back to my screen, and if I reload this page, params value is laptops. Okay, so this is working. I'm able to get the data of the URL. Now let me create a resource to get the products information. Before that, if I go here, I can copy this fetch and create a fetcher here. Instead of smartphones, I need to pass in the value. So let me say category name and take it as a argument. Let me create the resource here now. Const of product data is equal to create resource of. Now I will have to pass some value to this fetcher, so that can be passed as the first parameter, params dot name, and then call the fetcher. So products data is now created as a resource. I can use it in the same way that I used in the categories page with the help of show when product data dot loading is not, and then fallback equal to small div, please wait. A for object, now I can loop through this data. So for each of product data dot products, because it is data is given with products here. If you come back, so it is a variable, or it is a property of this JSON. So I am using the same thing, products, and then inside of this I can go through the product, and with the help of a div, let me give product dot title. Let's see whether this comes up fine. So you come back here. Yeah, so this is coming fine now. For laptops, these are the categories that are present. If I go back to categories page and click on smartphones, yeah, these are the categories that I have there. Let me style these also a bit. And before that, if I notice this products page, I have something called as categories and all. Let me go and check some actual products data. It has something called as thumbnails, which I'll use and style this component, and we'll come back in a second. I've styled this products page now, and this is how it looks. The dummy JSON actually gives one thumbnail image. So using that, I have designed it like this. I have created a back button on click of which it takes me to the previous page. So that is handled with the help of navigate of -1. So navigate is the same use navigate I have used here, and on click of each card I have to navigate to a products page. So that is what is present here, navigate of the products page. I'll not show you, or I'll not waste time in designing the page. I have already designed. I'll just show you how I have done that. In the products page I have created a resource to get the product data with the use params product name that I am passing. So with that I am getting the data, fetching the data and creating a resource with that, and then down with the help of show I am showing this data in a form wise, in a form with different input elements. So here you can see I have a title and a brand and then some descriptions, price, discount, stock, etc., with a submit button. So the submit button is actually calling handle submit, in which I'm just calling a put method to put this data into our dummy JSON. So let me show how it works on the screen. If I click on smartphones and say iPhone X, this is what my screen or my content of this iPhone X looks like. And if I open my uh, dev tools, I can modify anything here. So say for example 899, I'll make it as 1000, and then on submit I'm sending the data here. You can see this is of product 2 and the data is sent here. One second. This is the put method. This is the payload that I'm sending with price as 1000, and all other fields are same. So this 1000 is sent, and this after saving, this is what is the return that is given with the data that I sent. Now let me explain it little more in detail. Here these fields are part of the form, so I can get it in the handle submit with the help of this event handler e.target dot whatever the names I had here, description, price, etc. And then with that I'm constructing this body JSON string and passing and sending it to the this URL. Now as you see here, it is returning me some data. So this I can actually use it again on the screen with the help of mutate, which I told little earlier. So mutate and refetch are other two parameters that create resource can provide. So with that I can actually do then of mutate with by passing this response to this. So now when I go back to the screen and do a reload of this page, which is 899, if I now make it 1000 and then submit, so the data went and the data came and that is mutated to the data that is part of that is for this iPhone X. How I can assure that is the discount percentage has no data now, because the mutated data when it comes back is not giving me the discount percentage and all other values are given, and hence I can assure that the data got mutated back to the resource field. If at all if I don't want to mutate it but I want to refetch it, that is also very easy. As soon as the things are done, I can just call the refetch, and then if at all whatever do the change and save it, I get the same data back, because this is a dummy JSON. Whatever I save will not actually get saved in the database. In the real world situation, I would have got the new data back. The last point that I wanted to talk in this video is another lifecycle method called on cleanup. So on cleanup, as the name suggests, is you can implement it for cleaning up any of your resources from the component whenever you are exiting the component. For example, in this component, let me put an on cleanup function here, and whenever you go out of this categories component, this should be printed. Let me show you how it works in the screen now. Let me go to the categories page, and here when I click on any of these categories, it will move to a page outside of these categories, and you can see that on cleanup comes up here. So this helps in cleaning up your resources. If at all, if there are any, if you have subscribed to anything, you can unsubscribe here. If you have created any intervals or any timeouts, you can actually clear them in using on cleanup. With this, it's almost the end of this video. In the past 30 minutes, we understood what is solidjs, the benefits of it, the how it is not having virtual DOM, how the components get updated or the browser gets updated with the latest values without re-rendering the components, the lifecycle methods, the lifecycle methods like on mount and on cleanup, and the building blocks or the primitives like create signal, create memo, create effect, create resources, and some of the components like show and for each, and then last but not the least, the router. This is the basic need, or with these you can actually start your applications with solidjs. There are many more properties or many more components that you can use within solidjs. I will try to create one more video explaining some of those components in my next video. I hope this video was helpful to you. You can explore a new reactive web framework for your new UI development. Hopefully, if you have liked this, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll meet you with my next video. Until then, thanks and bye.